Welcome to Crime Time. My name is Charles, and you're watching Crime Time. Please hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified when I drop content on this channel. We're going to talk about Rex Herman. We're going to talk. We're going to talk about Rex Herman, who is better known as the Gilgo Beach serial killer on Long Island. We're going to talk about him today. So, suspect arrested in serial killings of women near Gilgo Beach. Rex Herman, a 59-year-old architect who lived in Nassau County, was charged with killing three women and is the prime suspect in the death of a fourth woman. The bodies were unearthed near remote Gilgo Beach on Long Island's South Shore more than a decade ago. Terrifying residents and leaving the victims' families birthed and bereaved. And all the remains of nine women, a man, and a toddler were discovered. Since then, investigators have tried to determine whether the killings had been committed by one person or by multiple attackers. But for more than a decade, the case went unsolved. The Rex Herman, an architect who had lived most of his life in Nassau County and worked in Manhattan, was taken into custody on Thursday, accused of killing three women and is suspecting the murder of a fourth before his arrest. Investigators had sifted through clues as simple as monogram wrapped around one of the victims, and as suffocated as electronic signals of disposable mobile phones. Outside the courthouse, Michael Brown, Mr. Herman's lawyer, said the evidence was circumstantial and that his client had wrecked, telling him, "I didn't do this." We're looking forward to fighting this case in a court of law and the court of public opinion, he said. Investigators said they linked Mr. Human to the killings using not only DNA, but technology that pinpointed the locations of disposable cellular phones they believe the killer used to contact the victims in the hours before they disappeared. Rex Herman is a demon that walked among us, a predator that ruins families, said Ronnie K. Harrison, the Suffolk County Commissioner. Despite criticism of the long investigation, he said investigators have never been discouraged. The body of Miss Bartholomew was the first that was discovered. On December 11th, 2010, when a police officer conducting a training exercise with his canine partner found her remains. 2 days later, the police found the remains of the three other women. Later that year, they found the remains of Valerie Mack, a 24-year-old mother from southern New Jersey who had paid the bills as an escort and had been missing for 20 years. The remains of six other people, four women and one man, and a 2-year-old girl who was the daughter of one of the women, were also unearthed in the months that followed. Those six deaths remain unsolved. The work is not done, but this is a major step forward, said Steve Bellone, the Suffolk County executive. The families of some victims said the arrest of Mr. Herman made them feel optimistic that their loved one's case will be solved. I'm grateful for the hard work that has been done, said Justin Robinson, a cousin of Jessica Taylor, a 20-year-old woman who had worked in escort in New York. Some of her remains were found in 2003, soon after she went missing. More were found along Ocean Parkway around Gogo Beach in early 2011. I'm grateful that today is happening, Mr. Robinson said, and I'm hopeful for the future. Prosecutors laid out an intricate investigation that saw a break in March of 2022 when investigators discovered that Mr. Herman had thrown a Chevrolet Avalanche truck at the time of the killings. A witness had said an avalanche parked on one of the murderer's woman's driveway shortly before she disappeared. Mr. Broad, the prosecutor wrote in his filing. By the time detectives learned of the truck, they had already narrowed the search to several men who were in a small area of Massapequa Park, where where, where cell site information had led them to believe that the killer lived. According to a person with knowledge of the matter, investigators learned that the killer had used burner phones to contact victims in the hours before they disappeared. Using mapping technology, they found that the calls to the victims originated from two key locations connected to Mr. Herman near his home on First Avenue in Massapequa Park and parts of Midtown Manhattan near the office at Fifth Avenue and 36th Street. It was not. It was near that office that a series of taunting calls were made to Miss Bethany's family using a phone. According to the court filing, one came in July 2009 to Miss Bethany's sister Amanda. You think you'd ever speak to her again? A bland, calm voice said to her, according to a person with knowledge of the call. When she told the caller that she hoped to talk to her sister again, he replied that he had to kill her after having sex with her. Several seconds later, the call hung up. Investigators learned that Mr. Herman used burner phones to contact prostitutes or message parlors, used false names to set up an email account to search for sex workers, sadistic torture, related pornography, and imagery, and videos of women and children being sexually assaulted. The account was also used to send selfies to solicit and arrange for sexual activity, and to search for podcasts and documentaries led to the investigation. He repeatedly reviewed hundreds of images displaying the murdered victims and members of the immediate families, Mr. Broad wrote. Mr. Harmon also searched for articles about a task force set up in 2002 to investigate the killings. But while he was finding out about the task force, it was finding out about him. In July 2022, a detective took 11 bottles from a trash can outside Mr. Herman's house. Investigators compared DNA from the bottles to DNA extracted from hairs found on some of the bodies. There was an apparent match for Mr. Herman's wife, who had been out of the country or out of state when each of the three women disappeared. Detectives concluded that Mr. Herman had somehow transferred his wife's hair to the victims. By January of 2023, Mr. Herman was under regular surveillance, and investigators saw him throw a pizza box into a sidewalk garbage can outside his office building. The Suffolk County Crime Laboratory swabbed the discarded crust for DNA, which in June matched with a hair found on Miss Waterman's body. Mr. Tony said that the task force used a grand jury to issue more than 300 subpoenas subpoenas and search warrants. The grand jury hoped investigators quietly pursue Mr. Herman. Mr. Turney said during a news conference, "We know this one person will be watching," he said. Mr. Herman lived most, if not all, of his life in a tidy, working class suburb, roughly an hour by train or car from Midtown Manhattan. Neighbors say he had attended Alfred G. Barner High School and lived in his long-term family home, which had vegetation on a roof that was partly supported by bare wood, which with its cracked and faded shingles. An uncapped yard. The small house stood out from the neatly kept homes on the block. Neighbors said they avoided it on Halloween. Residents described Mr. Herman as an average man who went to the Muskoka Park station every day, wearing a suit and toting a briefcase. You never think he was anything but a businessman, said a neighbor, Barry Osland. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to say this. All I can say is this. I mean, when this case first happened, there was so much evidence. You know, the police already knew who did it, but they were waiting until they had enough evidence to pursue the person who is responsible. He's in jail, and you know, to kill so many people and dispose of the body on a beach is crazy. And I think that you know it just took way too long to find these remains of the victims, but You know, I think it's crazy that it took this it took this long to get an indictment and justice for the families. And I think that more needs to be done in retrospect. And the story is crazy. So we can write this story down in the section box below. Other than that, I'm out. Peace.